When you're in a work experience program, the interview invites, they just fly towards your inbox. Interview invite to all these different places, multiple job offers as a result. And if I can do it, just some normal dude, no ties in the fire service, no uncle, no father, I don't have any minorities, I'm not, transgendered, gay, I have no leg up here. But the second I flipped that switch, everything changed. What's up, everybody? So today we're going to be talking about work experience programs. If you guys don't know what work experience programs are, it's a program essentially that you go to get experience to become a firefighter. The closest thing I could draw comparison to would be a volunteer fire department. Most people, when they're becoming firefighters, they become volunteer firefighters before they actually go and become a full-time career. They put on their resume, it gives them the leg up, and also they get to serve a community, which is incredible. So what a work experience program is usually for people that don't live in an area where they can volunteer as a volunteer firefighter. So they really have no other option as to how to get work experience that would be directly applicable to the fire service. So, I mean, you can go down the path, and I'm really against this. If you look at my IG, like, I'm really against this, but going down the path of fire-related experience. And I get people will come at this and be like, yo, but that's the experience I get from being an electrician or a plumber or trades or whatever it might be that's fire related. That job experience will be great for me on the job. And I agree with that. I 110,000% agree with that. But my page here is dedicated to getting you hired and getting you hired the best ways, the quickest ways, and the cheapest ways possible for you to go. And if we're talking about what's going to get you the most attraction and the most eyeballs on you from fire departments, it's getting real fire experience. Now, that's why I bring up this video of work experience programs. I went to a work experience program back in, I want to say the end of 2021. It was I think it was the day before Halloween. Yeah. The weekend of that, maybe the Friday or Saturday I showed up, and then working there for about 4 months before I got hired with Ottawa. So it is a great way to get experience if you live in a place where you can't get experience as a volunteer firefighter. And in addition to that, I'm gonna talk about in a second why, even if you do have experience as a volunteer firefighter, why a work experience program ultimately, and I think objectively, is a better way to go. So let's go back to the beginning. I have a few notes on my phone here, so I might be looking at this every now and then just to stay on track. And applying for the work experience program, I applied for two different ones. One was in Merritt, Canada, BC, and the other one was in Creston, BC. So Creston right here, Creston Valley. So with this program, I applied for the Merritt one a few months before. I got an interview, didn't get the position. A few months later, I applied again for Creston this time, and it was relatively, I want to say in the middle of summer, maybe July-ish, and then I got an interview at mid-August, I believe the timeline was. And then at the end of August, I actually got the position there. So now if I were to talk a little bit about the interview and what that process was like before I move ahead, essentially all it was when I applied, they have very specific instructions. We want you to include this document, this document, this document. And a lot of people message me and say, hey, I'm applying for a work experience program. What do I do with the application process? Honestly, the best advice I can give you is just follow it to a T. They're looking for a few things here. Really, the main thing is, can this person follow orders? And does this person obviously have the credentials needed to get accepted into the program? Usually it's very basic, like having your NFPAs, some sort of a physical or medical testing done, and whatever else is on the listing. It's very basic stuff. And in the interview, it was actually a little bit more intense than I thought it would be, because there was, from what I remember, maybe about 4 or 5 chiefs just sitting in the interview, and they were kind of going at me, just grilling me. But the difference here between when you interview with a big department, say like New York City, LA, Toronto, Vancouver, whatever, that's a full-on panel interview. With a smaller town or smaller city, usually they don't ask you the same 7 questions. They ask you more personal things. Like they want to get to know who you are as a person versus just we have the set questions and we have to, keep everyone on the same scale to make sure that everything's fair. This interview was more of a personal one where they wanted to get to know me. So was it a little more tough to prepare for? Sure, only because I thought I was going to get different questions than what I got. But at the end of the day, once I was just myself, I think they really did like that. And thankfully, it was enough to pull me through. A few days later, I got a phone call from the chief there, and he said, Joe, we would like to offer you a spot here. And I couldn't believe my ears, because at this point I've been trying to get any sort of volunteer or a career department position for about 5 years at that point. And just hearing those words come out of a chief's mouth, hey, yeah, we want to offer you a position. Like I couldn't believe this was happening. I remember I went out, I was at work at my job, my past job, and I went out, I saw the first person there, I gave him a hug. I'm like, thank you, man. Oh my God. He's like, well, Joe, what are you doing? I'm like, I got a position, a new job. He's like, oh, the firefighting stuff, it came through. And we're all happy about it. I remember he asked me on the phone too. He said, hey, so we have a spot available like literally in the next 2 weeks if you want to come then. I know the job listing said November, but can you come earlier? And I was like, gee, 2 weeks. And then I thought to myself, why is this? Why do they have a position open so quick and so early? I later realized that it was because the hiring rate for people that go through a work experience program is extremely fast. So people were literally, there were some cases there where people were literally there for 3 weeks, put it on the resume, and then they got hired at their dream department. So people were coming and going. Unfortunately, I couldn't go that early. I had a few other loose ends that I had to tie up back at home. So I waited until the end of October, Halloween, like I said, early November. Now, when I first got the position, I was just so excited that nothing really settled in. However, after everything kind of calmed down a little bit, it was like a week or so later, reality set in, and I thought to myself, oh, like, I'm leaving my friends, my family, my life, my job, everything just behind, and I'm putting it all on hold for this next chapter. You're not going to be making as much money. You might have a relationship in your life that you might not still be able to maintain while you're over there. The position was for 1 year, or if you got hired sooner than that, you were able to leave. But there was no guarantee that you would get hired sooner than that. So it's pretty much a year of your life in a different place, and it's gonna be all just like FaceTimes and texting and calling people back at home. But ultimately, after everything settled, I think I finally fully got on board and committed to going. The 2 months there, September, October, I remember being with my friends and my family and just trying to say, like, slow this time down, slow these memories down, because, you're going to be remembering these times when you're over there for however long you are over there for. And, time was just speeding by. So it was a very weird thing, because I didn't want to leave behind my friends and family, but at the same time, I wanted to work towards my future. So finally, the end of October came and I was going. I literally went to the airport the morning of. And I remember it was tough having to leave, tough having to say goodbye to everybody, but I knew that if I worked really, really hard at getting a job back home, that I wouldn't have to be there for a year. And thankfully, I was right. So I remember I had to take 2 planes, one from Toronto, YYZ, over to Vancouver, and then take a smaller plane from Vancouver over to the actual area that I was going to. The bigger city closest to Creston was a city called Cranbrook. I remember when I got there, 2 of the other people that were in the work experience program as well came to pick me up. Now, I should mention, when you're in a work experience program, it's not just you. It's essentially you, and my program, there was 5 other people, so 6 in total, and we were all in the same position trying to get hired, either back in Ontario or back in BC. While you're there, you're literally living in the fire hall, or like it was like right across a parking lot, like 10 feet away. That was our dormitory, and then the fire hall is right across the parking lot. So I remember the 2 amazing people came to pick me up. One of them I was actually there to replace, as this was his last or second last day, and he just got hired with Vancouver. Driving from the airport over to where we were going in Creston, it took about an hour, and as I'm going through, I'm seeing all these mountains, I'm seeing all these deer just run across the street, and I'm like, where am I? Keep in mind, I'm coming from Toronto, right? Like big city, CN Tower, like Drake, all that stuff, the weekend, you know what I mean? And now I'm in this super small town where everybody knows everybody. And to say it was a little bit of a culture shock, yeah, absolutely. Once I got there, I settled in relatively quickly. But to say it was easy, that would be a lie. Because yeah, right when I did get there, I did feel initially a little homesick. I had to set up my bedroom. I had to, check in with my friends and family, let them know that I got there safe. And in addition to that, I had to now start a new job with new people that I've never met. And I'm trying to fit in, but at the same time, I'm trying to do my job. At the same time, I'm trying to not be homesick. At the same time, I'm trying to get hired back at home again. So it's a lot is happening. So I remember the next day after I was there, we actually had a Halloween event at the fire hall where all the kids in the city can come get, treats, trick-or-treating or whatnot. And this was a really good experience because all the other volunteers who were volunteering in the department, because it wasn't just the work experience program members, it was also the people in the community. They had volunteer firefighters as well. And that's pretty much how the fire department ran, by the volunteers and the WEPs. So I got to meet everybody there and it was awesome. Everyone was super nice, super kind, shaking hands. This is the new guy. This is the new guy. He's going to be here for a little bit. And yeah, they were the nicest people I could have ever imagined meeting. Fast forward to Monday is my first shift. And I didn't know really anybody other than the people that I was living in the house with and my roommate. And now I was going to meet all the chiefs. I was going to meet my captain, who would essentially be my boss for the next little while. I was really, really nervous. But thankfully, everybody was amazing. Everyone was super cool, super chill, and everyone was on the same page. We're here to work. We're here for you to learn. We're here to teach you as much as we can. And we want you to get hired. That's the name of the game here. The way that we would do that was by protecting the city from every emergency call that came through. And the calls came through quick, very, very quick. I don't remember exactly how many calls I got on that first day or first week even. We'd have a radio that we'd have attached to us that would always be on, and then it would come through there. But we could also have an app on our phones. I forget what it was called. That the call would come through literally maybe 10 or 20 seconds before on the app, and then the tones would go off. So I remember my buddy there had a Apple Watch, and on the watch, it would go off 10, 20 seconds before, and then he'd start running up like, yo, where are you going, bro? And he's like, we got a call. And I'm like, no, we don't. And boop, 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 everything would go off. And then we're just out there. Now we're at an MVC, right? Now we're at a medical. Now, my friend that was sitting beside me is now driving. Now I'm driving to a call. It's like, what's happening right now? And that's one thing I'll say about the work experience program. It's not like, okay, let's just ease you into this role. We're gonna learn through experience. We're gonna learn through throwing you in the swimming pool and swimming. We're gonna see, can you swim here? And at the end of the day, at first it was tough, and some people found that method very tough to go by. But honestly, looking back on that, I think it was the best way to learn because, yeah, it's either sink or swim. And ultimately, everybody was able to swim. And when I say we went to different types of calls, yeah, there was car accidents every day. There was fires every day. I think I went to the most fires there than I've ever been with any other career department. In addition to that, just random calls across the community. Someone needed their tire changed, and so we go and we help because, we're firefighters, and we're not just there to put out fires, but we're there to serve the community. Let me tell you about how the schedule would work. We would pretty much work from, I believe it was 8 in the morning till about 6 p.m. we'd be on shift. So essentially, if any call came in, we'd all go. Now at night, we'd be able to take shifts. So between 6 p.m. and then 8 a.m. the next day, we'd be on shift. So you can take either a rescue shift, then those people would go to all the fire-related calls, or you can take a medical shift, and obviously those people would go to the medical calls. Now, if there was a hall page, everybody would go at night, even the people that were not even on shift. And that means essentially, if we get a call like that, there's a fire in the middle of the night, we need all hands on deck. And those nights happened very often, very often. And yes, there's the part where you're like, well, I want to sleep. I don't want to be interrupted in the middle of the night. And while you're even going to the call, you're walking there, you look half dead, mezza mort, and you're now all of a sudden in the truck on the way to the call, and there's a fire in front of you, and you got to act. In the moment, you're kind of like scratching the sleep out of your eyes, but always right when the fire started, you're like, okay, let's do this. Like, I'm excited. Afterwards, you would have the camaraderie. Even when we were cleaning up the equipment, I remember we were cleaning it up one day after some fire, and we're just having the time of our lives. We're singing, we're laughing, we're joking around. Like I'm tossing this to you, you're tossing this to me, and we're building camaraderie through the hard work, through the quote unquote tough times, through I want to go back to sleep. Like, fuck that, man. Get out there. Come on, let's work together. And when you hear your partner say, yo, fuck that, man, and the smile on their face, let's get out there. You know what? You want to get out there. You say, fuck sleep. This is more fun. This is more enjoyable than getting my REM sleep. And don't get me wrong, sleep's very important, absolutely. But what I'm saying is something about it was just special, fun. Some of the best memories of my life were formed with those people on those late night calls. After about the first month, you could start to feel the camaraderie just really, really building. We become almost like a little bit of a family. Hanging out, we're talking, we're all getting to know each other. We, would take little trips together over to Cranbrook whenever we could as a group. And we essentially would just enjoy our time together. And I'll admit there was some times in the house where we'd butt heads. Someone wouldn't wash the dishes, someone would leave the TV on, or someone's making too much noise, and we have to have little house meetings to kind of mitigate those situations. But that's another amazing part of living there, because you get to learn what it's like to live in close quarters with other people. Learn to how to mitigate situations for like real in real time, and not just when you're at an interview and you're talking about it, like just making something up. You actually know what that's like, and you now know the steps to actually help the house function better and to get everybody flowing together once again. Now, when it came to our tasks during the day, we were either training, we were doing maintenance on the trucks, all the vehicles, and taking care of all the different fire halls that made up that fire department. So I believe there was 4 of them there. And during the week, we'd all rotate between who would go take care of the halls in the west end of Creston, in the north end, the east end, etc. At every Thursday night, there was a training night. And on the training night, all the WEPs would go, but in addition, everybody, all the volunteers would have to go as well. And those were the best times, because not only would we be doing extra training, but we get to interact with everybody that was part of the fire department. And a lot of the times they would even ask us, the WEPs, to train, because we had the most experience. We were there pretty much day in, day out, and they'd say, Joe, can you help these guys, teach them about how to tie knots today? Okay. John, can you go help this person, teach them how to work a rigging system? Can you teach them how to get dressed? Can you teach them medical stuff? Like, we would pass along like little roles and responsibilities like that amongst each other. So it really does inspire a lot of leadership, a lot of initiative. I believe that if you're able to teach somebody something, you now know that task very, very well. Because, and if you think that, you know what, I know a task really good, I really know it, then go ahead and teach somebody something, and you'll see all the holes in the things you don't know, the things that you were saying, oh yeah, I get that. Then you start to see what you really understood and what you didn't. So it was really an amazing time. And when I was there, a large portion of my time was saying, you know what, like, I love being here, but I want to go home. And that's the other aspect and the other half of everything that was happening there. I not only was working really hard to learn how to be a firefighter and to get that experience to serve everybody, but I was also working another job, and that was to come back home with my study material to practice every morning, every night. And I have a program where I talk about how I went through all of that material every single day, that study routine. And that right there is really what was the missing piece to bring me home at the end of the day. Now, I applied to many departments when I was there. I had many interviews, and I got a lot of different bites from different departments, moving me on to different stages. Now, the one that I guess stands out the most is the one that I got hired with. And I believe I applied to Ottawa mid-December. I got a call back from them end of January, interview February, midway. And then I got the job. They allowed me to do the interview remotely because I was in BC, they're in Ottawa, obviously. But then they said for the next phase, you are gonna have to come to Ottawa to do our testing. Now I have a whole video about what my experience was like in Ottawa and what it was like in drill school later on. I'll link them here. So like everybody else in the house at a certain point, I flew back to Ontario. Other people were flying back every now and then because they had to do their OFAI. If you're from Ontario, you know what that is. It's essentially our standardized testing over here that we need to have completed in order to to apply to most departments. And that OFAI expires sometimes after 6 months. Some of the stages are after a year, etc. So people were flying back all the time. That was one of my experiences too. I had to get a plane ticket, fly back the next week, and coordinate everything to be in Ottawa for a specific day, specific time for the CPATs, for the medical as well. It was, I want to say, the beginning of March. I'm not sure. I remember when I was here, I actually went to go see a movie. It was The Batman. So whenever that came out with Robert Pattinson, that's when I was back home in the GTA. But yeah, I went over to Ottawa, got everything done. And then after that, I didn't get the job offer immediately. So I flew back over to Creston and I said, you know what, I'm going to stay here until an actual job offer comes through. I'm not going to leave you guys high and dry, even though it pretty much seemed like a lock at that point. But you guys have done so much for me. I'm not just gonna, fuck off, because you guys are incredible. And if I get this job, like, come on, it's essentially, the reason is because I was here, because I got no traction at all the years before, and I'm suddenly getting it now. Come on, amazing. Now I want to talk about one thing here, and people say to me, is it better experience than a volunteer department? And I'm going to say 110% yes. Now, I have not been part of a volunteer department. I live in a bigger city and there is no volunteer department here. But with that being said, at a volunteer department, how many times a month do you drive the truck? How many times a month do you actually go to a call? How many times a month do you actually make it to the station before the trucks have left to go to that call? How many times do you go to a VSA? How many times do you go to MVC? Like, realistically, like don't inflate the numbers. How many times? Like, write them down on paper. How many times? Now, in a work experience program, it's every single day at some sort of call, getting experience. Now, people that I know who are in volunteer programs, they said, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, I drove the truck twice this month. Isn't that good, Joe? I'm like, twice this month? Bro, I drove it twice this morning. Twice this morning to go to a medical and then to go to a fire, and I'm driving all week. So the experience you get and the knowledge that you get, I think it's honestly, like, this would be gradually increasing as a volunteer program. This is how you increase exponentially when you're in a work experience program. I honestly believe that being there 24/7, living in the fire hall, teaching other people the things that you've learned, you learn so much more in a work experience program than you would at a volunteer department. Now, if you want to work at a volunteer department for 10 years, absolutely, you'll probably gain that knowledge. Maybe 5 years, you'll gain the knowledge that I gained in like 4 months. 5 years versus 4 months, in my head, there's really no competition here. Now, again, I want to reiterate, I'm not saying that there's not benefits of being a volunteer firefighter in your community. Absolutely, you serve a community, you help people, you help that community grow. And in addition to that, you're there to protect your home. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But like I said, this page, my IG, this YouTube is how to get hired the quickest, best, cheapest ways possible. And this is one of the ways. When I was there, I didn't pay for a thing. I mean, I paid for groceries to like eat my food, but they let me live there for free. And they also were paying me for some of the calls as well. For all the training nights and every call I went to, I'd log it in. And at the end of the month, yeah, it was $1,000, maybe $1,500. So it wasn't like that much money. I wasn't there getting rich, but that wasn't the point. And when I match up, I hear the stories of the volunteer friends that I've had versus a work experience program. I mean, come on. I know some people who are in volunteer programs now and they're still trying to get hired. They've been there for 5 years. They're not even getting pulled in for interviews. When you're in a work experience program, the interview invites, they just fly towards your inbox. You essentially flip the script from saying, hope I get 1 job offer, please God, into interview invite to all these different places, multiple job offers as a result. You now having the option as to where you want to work. You create your own options, and the work experience program allows you to do that. It's a very unique experience that allows candidates to put themselves years and years ahead. To sum up, the work experience program, in my opinion, I couldn't recommend it to enough people. People watching this video, I've probably recommended it to you in the DMs because I honestly believe it's one of the best ways and quickest ways and cheapest ways to get hired. Yes, it requires a little bit of sacrifice, but myself, I worked really hard when I was there to study and study and study for interviews. So the second I had interviews, boom, 4 months, I was gone. And if I can do it, just some normal dude from a city, a big city, you can do it too. There's nothing special about me. I'm just some guy who has no ties in the fire service, no uncle, no father. I'm not a tall guy. I don't have any minorities. I'm not, transgendered, gay, any sort of, like minority. I have no leg up. There's no reason they should hire me. And you want proof of that? They didn't hire me for 5 fucking years. Therefore, I have no leg up here. But the second I flipped that switch, everything changed. Everything. So if you're debating if you want to go to work experience program, if you're debating if it's going to work, bruh, flip the script today. Go apply for one. Like, they're not sponsoring this video. No one is. Like, no one is sponsoring this video right now. So I have no ties to that other than to say do it because it's best for you and your future. Those are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. Those are some of the best experiences I ever had in my life. Some of the best people I've ever met in that town. And for sure, I will say it's a highlighted chapter in the story of me and my life, that experience. So can't say enough good things about the work experience programs. I can't say enough. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you haven't applied to one, apply for one today. I promise you, change your life. God bless everybody. Take care now. Woo!